Hey everybody, we are going to talk about trig and get back into the unit circle. Woohoo! Um, there are two videos this week. This is the first one, and we're really going to talk about the reciprocals of sine, cosine, and tangent, and finding the exact value on the unit circle. Okay, but first, kind of review, what is a reciprocal? When you flip a fraction's numerator and denominator, hopefully this is review for you. If you have a fraction 4 over 5, the reciprocal is 5 over 4. If you have something like 1 over 5, it becomes 5 over 1, or just plain old 5. Same thing goes if you have 8 or 8 over 1, the reciprocal would be 1 over 8. So let's find some reciprocals here with our sine and cosine. Well, this one hopefully is pretty easy. All you have to do is flip them. So this is going to be cosine theta over sine theta. Now remember that weird looking O with a line through it is a Greek letter, just represents X. So you may see this symbol theta, or you might see an X here. Just know that they basically mean the same thing, that angle. So the reciprocal of sine theta would be 1 over sine theta. And then the same thing for cosine here, cosine theta, the reciprocal is 1 over cosine theta. Okay. Now, there are trig functions that represent 1 over sine and 1 over cosine and cosine over sine. We're going to talk about this first one here is 1 over sine. That is actually called the cosecant. It's the reciprocal of the sine function. So cosecant, you'll see that's just going to be added to our list of trig functions. So we'll have sine, cosine, and tangent, and now we'll have cosecant added to it. Here, this question, how would you state this using opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse? Well, if you think about your SOHCAHTOA from way back when, a few weeks ago we did SOHCAHTOA. Well, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, right? The cosecant is 1 over that, so 1 over the opposite over the hypotenuse. Well, whenever you have like a fraction within a fraction, remember the keep, change, reciprocal, or keep, change, flip, right? So 1 times the hypotenuse over the opposite, which is basically just the hypotenuse over the opposite. And that would be your solution here, okay? So that is the cosecant. Let's look at the next one, which is 1 over sine. I'm sorry, 1 over cosine, which is the secant. That's the reciprocal of the cosine. So secant is another trig function that we're going to be adding. How would you state this using opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse? Well, again, lovely SOHCAHTOA. Here we need our adjacent over hypotenuse. So that would be 1 over the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And keep, change, flip, or keep, change, reciprocal. It's going to end up being the hypotenuse over the adjacent for the secant. Okay, so secant is the cosine, cosecant is the sine. Okay, cotangent is 1 over tan. So the reciprocal of tangent is the cotangent, 1 over tan. How would we state this using opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse? Again, SOHCAHTOA here. Tan is opposite over the adjacent, so it's 1 over opposite over adjacent. So keep, change, flip, or adjacent over opposite. Okay, Here are all the reciprocal identities. So sine is 1 over cosecant, vice versa, cosecant is 1 over sine. Cosine is 1 over secant, vice versa, secant is 1 over cosine. And tan, remember when we did the unit circle way back when, we said tan was the y over the x coordinate. So sine over cosine. So that means the cotangent is going to be the cosine over sine. So these are 6 major reciprocal identities I would keep handy when you're doing your assignment, along with the unit circle. So this is basically what you're going to be asked to do. You're going to be asked to find the secant of 150, the cosecant of 4 pi over 3, the cotangent of pi, the secant of 300. They may throw in a sine or a cosine in there. And just a refresher, remember the sine, that is your y coordinate. And then the cosine is your x coordinate. Okay, so don't forget that because you're going to need that for these as well. Okay, so secant of 150. So on my unit circle, I'm going to go to 150 over here. And then we want secant. Now, if you need to go back to this secant here, it's 1 over cosine, 1 over cosine. So I need 1 over the x value. Well, the x value here is negative radical 3 over 2. So it's going to be 1 over negative radical 3 over 2. Okay, well, this does not look right to me, so I need to keep change flip or flip it. Okay, so we'll have negative 2 over radical 3. And again, remember, we don't like radicals in the denominator, so we have to rationalize the denominator. So multiply by radical 3 over radical 3. And the top, when you multiply negative 2 times radical 3, is just negative 2 radical 3. The denominator, radical 3 times radical 3 is radical 9. Well, what is the square root of 9? Well, that's 3. Okay, so that's my answer here. Cosecant of 4 pi over 3. 4 pi over 3. So on my unit circle here, here's 4 pi over 3. Cosecant is your y, right? It's 1 over sine, so 1 over your y. We got the same thing, negative radical 3 over 2. So again, it'll be the same thing like this previous problem here. So you're going to have 1 over negative radical 3 over 2, or if you flip it, just negative 2 over radical 3, which again, like you have to rationalize just like you did up there in the previous. So it becomes negative 2 radical 3 over 3 as your answer here. Okay. Cotangent of pi. So pi is over here. Cotangent is x over y, right? If you remember when we did the unit circle, tan was sine over cosine or y over x. So that means the cotangent is going to be x over your y or cosine over your sine. So x over y. So here's my x coordinate, here's my y coordinate. So negative 1 over 0. Well, 0 is the denominator. Do we like? Or can we divide by 0? No, we cannot. So this answer right here is undefined. I'm just going to abbreviate. All right. Secant of 300. So I'm going to go to the 300 on my unit circle. Secant, remember, is 1 over x. So 1 over x. So I need my x value. Okay. Or 1 over the cosine. Sorry. Same thing. So we want 1 over 1/2. Okay. Again, keep change reciprocal. Or it becomes 2 over 1, which is the same thing as 2. And that would be your answer there. Okay, if you have any questions with this stuff, please don't hesitate to email Mr. Mangold or myself. If we need to set up like a video chat or anything like that with more problems, we can do that as well. But there are a couple assignments that you just have to do this for. One is an actual document on Google Classroom. The other one is a quizzes. Um, so please let me know, or Mr. Mangold know, if you have any questions.